I was fortunate enough that last year, I think if I'm not mistaken, yeah, last year in October, every year in October, KRA has this 1 week where they have in Canada Conference Center, it's about 1,000 people, it's a stakeholder engagement meeting and blah, blah, blah. I went to the podium and I looked at all the KRA commissioners there, each and every one of them. There were like 40 of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I told them, I addressed them and I said, good morning, and I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy to see my shareholders are here. And KRA by default is a 30% shareholder in my company. Because if I make profit, I have to give them 30%. So they're my shareholder. So let us
Sure.
first establish a fact that they are my shareholders. But they are my shareholders only in profit, not in loss. If I make profit, I have to give them 30%. I said,
Mm-hmm.
can my shareholders do the correct thing? Can my shareholders start thinking that how can they grow my business so they can get more shareholder value, they can get more shareholder returns?
Amazing.
A couple of days later, the Commissioner General called me. He said, Mr. Bedi, can you come and meet us in Times Tower? I went. He had the entire top brass sitting there, started talking to me, and they said, what should we do differently? I said, you need to sit with me and do
Mm-hmm.
your rightful duty as a shareholder. Not come and check my books and frustrate the shit out of me. And I
Sure.
get disinterested in the business. I also start winding down my business because I don't want those. And I said, you know what? By and large, Kenyan industry, Kenyan formal sector is 97% compliant. There's
Mm-hmm.
a whole world outside there which is 0% compliant. Please put your energy where you can get from 0 to 20 to 30 to 50% compliance rather than
Mm-hmm.
the guy who's at 97 or 92% trying to make him, because nobody will be 100%. There'll always be a mistake here and there. Instead
Mm-hmm.
of making that guy 92% compliant guy to make him 110% compliant, you're going to squeeze him and he's going to die. There's no point. So let's all collectively work on that informal sector out there, huge
Mm-hmm.
informal sector, under the radar business. And I told them, let's be honest, man. Gikomba is a free port of Kenya. You can
Mm-hmm.
tell the price of a television there and price in China is the same. Can't you see there was no ushuru paid? And it should be 25% more expensive. So there were lots of engagements that I've had, and they were very happy that I called them a shareholder because everybody would want to hit them hard. I said, do your rightful duty as a shareholder. Come and sit with me, ask me my
Mm-hmm.
problem, solve my issues, look at my pain areas, let us address them together. And there's a lot of pain in doing business. So if we can address that pain and I can make more profit, see, you get more.
Yeah,
Win-win. Win-win.
that's impressive. KRA is a shareholder, but what would you advise the small businesses? Because maybe they won't, they don't make millions yet, and
It
so
doesn't
maybe they
matter.
won't have the
Even
year.
even as
Yeah,
it doesn't matter, Linda. A small business will make 1 shilling profit. She want to
yeah.
live for 30 cents. Still a
Uh-huh.
shareholder.
Still a
Now they
shareholder.
should be asking that small business from 1 shilling, how can you grow to 10 shillings? From 10 shillings, how can you grow to 100 shillings? Because I want my 30%.
Uh-huh. So,
That's the
guys,
engagement they're not doing. They're not doing that engagement. If they start
uh-huh,
changing their mindset from
sure.
stakeholder to shareholder, very big difference. You'll start
Wow,
seeing a pro business approach.
amazing. So, guys, talk to KRA as your shareholder. Amazing. It's how then you engage them. But speak about, on that point, on KRA, professional fees, speak about business licenses. There's a lot of young people, young entrepreneurs in the call. Business licenses, there's been a lot of thread in the Twitter recently on the costs, like, for example, you're a restaurant, just to get a business license, or if you're a wines and spirits shop, uh, you spend just about 50,000 bob on business license. So, for example, if you're a wines and spirits shop, we've done the analysis, you spend 50,000 bob on licenses. So all these signages and all these things, if you're a restaurant, and all there's several licenses, I don't know, fire exchange licenses, like very, very many licenses. So there's a whole Twitter thread around that. Speak about business licenses, what more can be done?
Okay, I think the one of the problems that we created in Kenya ourselves is our 2010 when we created 47 counties, and then we started telling them, guys, you need to create A&A, which means
Sure.
try to get some own income. And in
Mhm.
that process, without giving them guidelines, without giving them a rule book, without
Sure.
telling them that you guys we are one Kenya. We might be 47 counties, but we are one Kenya. We need to uh, sell Kenya as one destination. So when you have all these multiple licenses, you move your product from Nakuru
Yeah.
to Nairobi. On the way, you
Sure.
come through Kiambu, and you have to pay a cess there. And they have
Sure.
just increased the cost of doing business. I'm happy with the strong KEPSA involvement and with the strong advocacy that we have been working on last 10 years. 2 weeks ago, the Council of Governors agreed that, you know what, this is duplicate fees and licensing. We must stop. We must have one license, and that is your Kenya license. It allows you to run your businesses in 47 counties. We've actually created 47 countries effectively because we did not manage the devolution properly. So we have a serious issue. KEPSA has a lot of work to do, but
Yeah.
KEPSA has made headway, and in that headway, I'm happy to report that 2 weeks ago we've got agreement. So we're going to start dismantling these multiple fees and bring them down and bring them
Sure.
to manageable fees so the cost of doing business is managed. But it's an ongoing exercise.
Sure, sure. And I think Gatweri, that answers your question. She's asking, KEPSA as a body can help us advocate for more understanding touch, for example, from KRA, and initiate a sitting where SME operators can actually voice concerns to KRA. Is this possible? Like the concerns you are talking about, bring a lot of the SMEs, have KRA in there, and talk about those compliance issues, because we actually feel policed, really.
No, you're
Instead of
right. But
us
you see,
as
the roundtable that KEPSA is having with the KRA, with NMS, with counties, with speaker, they are helping a lot, including the roundtable that we were having with the president, the
sure,
PRTs. So I think KEPSA right now, with all its membership base and it's a single unified voice of the private sector, is really how we should engage the government, because you really don't want to have an individual company or an individual sector making submission, because then you're also subject to repercussions of that same law. So if it's done holistically, when I did pain areas for industry, when I went to chair APC, I actually wrote to all institutions. I wrote to KEPSA, I wrote to FK, I wrote to KM, I wrote to the bankers, and I wrote to every one of them and said, give me your pain areas. And you know what? Out of all the institutions that I wrote to, how can we boost exports out of Kenya? That was my agenda. And give me your pain areas. Can I take that pain away? I realized there were 14 pain areas. And out of 14 pain areas in different sectors, when I put everything together, I looked at the common denominators. 8 out of 14 were common problems, and 6 were sector specific. So I started working on the 4 pain areas on the only 8, because if I work on those 8 common areas, the common denominators, I'm
sure,
helping several sectors in Kenya. And that's what we started doing. And I think KEPSA, with its multi membership in various sectors, we are re-engaging each and every one of them. The first thing we had as you know, I'm in the chair less than a month ago, and we have already had meetings, induction meetings. There's a new board. Uh, the sectors are there. And we're trying to now engage with individual sectors and say, where are your pain areas? How can we grow your business? How can we help you? So everybody out there who is a member of KEPSA, you will start hearing a lot more, some
KEPSA.
sort of personal engagements where we will distill all the information we get from individual sectors, putting in one paper. That position paper becomes our lobbying and advocacy position paper. To the extent, as we go into an election year in 2022, we would like to influence, as KEPSA, some of the manifestos of some of these political parties. We are not political, but surely we can influence their manifestos so that they carry the SME agenda, they carry the private sector agenda, so that we can actually shape them. And we need to engage them and not be a critique, because if we are not part of the process of making their manifesto, then whoever comes in power, then we are to blame because we did not influence the thought process.
Wow. So Gatweri, join the SME KEPSA sector board. There's even a youth one. There's a youth sector board. There are so many boards, by the way. And even there's an SME sector board. You can join that one as well, as long as you become a member of KEPSA. Ronald is asking many questions. Ronald is asking, how important is the role of ICT in this sector, in your sector?
ICT is super, super important. According to me, we are having this meeting because of ICT. If there was no ICT, there would be no Zoom, there would be no virtual meetings, and let's be honest, there's a lot more business that we are transacting in virtual business today. Now, the question was how I did in my sector. Between you and me, and for maybe it's not public, it's not in the public domain, but because it's a blunt question, I'm going to give it a blunt answer. I'm moving my business from a textile business to a tech business. It's going to be a technology business. I'm moving from B2B to B2C. In B2C, I will be dealing directly with my customer. If I'm selling a T-shirt for $3, I'll be able to sell it for $5. And if the customer was buying it at $10, he could now buy it for $5. So the point I'm making is when you move from using technology from B2B into B2C, you
Yeah.
actually bring value into the supply chain and value for both the seller and both the buyer. Both of them will benefit. The seller will get a higher price, the buyer will get a lower price. Again, win-win. So we are moving in from textiles to tech.
Wow. Tech is everything. Amazing. Mustafa, Mr. Bedi, you're a resilient leader and a strong strategist for global competitiveness. Sorry. So Michael Porter, an authority in global competitiveness, talks about developing clusters, having clusters. How can we develop the clusters in Kenya for global competitiveness?
100% right. Totally subscribe. And the business that I am in is a cluster business as well. If I was the standalone factory doing production for Calvin Klein, I wouldn't see boots on the ground and I wouldn't see growth. So what I've done in our sector, I've strongly advocated in 2014. I brought about 40 investors to 3 East African countries, Ethiopia, Kenya, and Uganda. As the chairman of the African Cotton and Textile Industries Federation, I was chairing 26 countries. So I was showcasing Africa to the world. And one of the key things that we were trying to do is that we want to create clusters. For example, if you have to import your fabric to make a shirt, what about the button? What about the zip? What about the thread? If that you have to import, it makes it very difficult for you to survive. And if you see that the clothing business, I mean, many of you may or may not know today, if you go out to buy Calvin Klein underwear, if you pick 10 boxes out of Calvin Klein underwear, maybe 3 or 4 will be made in Kenya. You will be shocked. Even we are starting a new factory doing Calvin Klein production and Tommy Hilfiger production. And they're all made in Kenya. It's just exported. You don't see it in Kenya and you don't believe it's made in Kenya. But that label made in Kenya is massive. And yeah, it only works where you can shorten your supply chain, and you can only shorten your supply chain by creating clusters. Because I can't be saying, oh my God, I've run out of a poly bag, I can't export, or I don't have a carton, I can't export. So we need to create clusters around supply chains and support them so they can grow.
Very true. Very true. I don't think I can add. You can read more about clustering. There's a lot of material online. Michael Porter and the rest. There's a lot of material about case studies, Japan, how they do clustering there, China. There's a lot of material. Please read. Entrepreneurs must read, guys. We must read.
And you know something, Linda, what has changed a lot because of ICT and because of the consumer patterns, what has changed a lot. Up to now, manufacturing and all sorts of industry, they worked in something called JIT, which is just in time.
Yeah.
That model is history. It's toast. It's now real time. Either you are doing business real time or you're not. You can't do it just JIT anymore. So JIT is done. Toast. Business today is real time. You and me are talking right now in real time. That's how business is conducted.
Wow. This is a very rich session. Thank you for your time. Very, very. I feel like we should have some more. So much insight. So much. There's a question on. I'll just link it on growth. But there's a question. It's a very interesting question. But there's a question from. I can't seem to find him. But he was asking. Talk about when you got your first million. What would you do with what in terms of sales? How you grew as Bedi Investments, and you got your first million. How did it feel? What did you do with it? How has that growth journey been? Very interesting question.
It depends which country you're living in. If you're living in Uganda, your first million is just probably a meal.
In Kenya,
And if
in
you're
US,
living in Kenya, it's more than a meal. And if you're living in the US, $1 million is 100 million shillings. So it's all relative and all perspective.
yeah,
So to
yeah, that's,
me, there was no real excitement because that million was not enough for my
mhm,
growth strategy. What my thinking was, I wanted to be a conglomerate. I wanted to be a multinational. I wanted to
mhm,
run a business which is in many countries and and a global business. So when you're thinking that you want to be world class, the first 1 million is really very very little money for the strategy that you have. And yes,
mhm,
it was redeployed in the business because that 1 million was supposed to then generate 10, and then 10 was supposed to generate 100, and that's how it carried on. So to date, most of the money that we generate is actually redeployed because we don't have foreign capital in the company, and it's all retained earnings that's growing the business.
mhm. Yeah. So Leon, don't get excited with the first million. He's called Leon. He asked the question. It's not about the first million. From his point, look at the business plan that you have. Yeah. Think about the growth and where you want to be, and reinvest and keep pushing towards that. Amazing. So what I want to do is I'd like you to really speak or end with the 12 hours, and then I'll let you go. I know it's 10:55. This is how the time flies here. There are many, many questions. You can end with the 12 hours. It's really insightful. There is repurpose, reinvent. Talk to us about those 12 hours.
When I had that call, that was when I had that call with His Excellency the President, and he said, "Bedi, I need your help." That's when I realized I needed to reinvent myself and refocus, relaunch, rebuild, rethink. I was rethinking. What should I do? Redesigning product lines which I've never done. I was reimagining my business. It's no longer going to be what I was doing for the last many, many years. And to the extent that I became the largest producer of PPE in the region and in
Wow.
Kenya. So I had to reimagine everything and redefine my new goals and how do I talk to my people? How do I reskill them? How do I recreate? So basically, I was restarting my life in
Sure.
simple words. And I had to rebound and rebounce into a new space and be successful and yet be resilient considering the pandemic. Obviously, you have to re-engage with new stakeholders. You have to reappraise.
Mhm.
It was you have to recover from the pandemic, and it was a revolution,
Mhm.
and that's what I went through. So to me, we have to reboot, re-engineer, rethink, re all the re's in your life. Put them on the table. Think about
Wow.
them and how relevant are they to your business, and you're good to go.
Where? Guys, very interesting, very interesting. Great. It's 10:45. Mr. Bedi has really shared a lot. uh, any I hope I have asked all your questions. I think I have gone through all of them, every single one of them. I don't think I have missed any single one. But if you could give a parting shot, you've talked about opportunities that we can take advantage of. Parting shot to the young SMEs on the call, what would you tell us? What would you tell them?
Well, the parting shot will be simple. With every crisis comes an opportunity. So let's look at the opportunities in the problem and not shy away and go back and say, oh my God, my world has come to an end, because no, your world is just about starting. So look at the opportunity in the crisis. I looked at the opportunity in the crisis last year. Otherwise, I would have lost 800 people and I would have a factory which was closed today, purely because the global dynamics change. And yes, my business models are changing. I
Mhm.
sell to a lot of retailers, and I can see all these retailers are going to hit a brick wall. I can see the business of retailing is going to be history, and retailing is going to move from retailing to e-tailing. It's going to
Wow.
go to tech. So
Mhm.
retail to e-tail. Now, how can you service an e-tail business? You're not
Mhm.
servicing a retail business anytime. And the
Mhm.
mobile phone, telephonia, and technology has shown us something, that the world is moving, and you
Yeah.
need to move at the same pace. If you don't move at the same pace, you are done, because you need to supply that e-tailer How do you engage with that retailer? Amazon has just become the world's biggest retailer today. Yeah, they are bigger than Walmart. So there is a whole big change. All the
Mhm.
shopping malls, according to me, are going to become recreational centers. They're not going to be placed for shopping. You will
Sure.
shop online. You'll shop on Jumia. You'll buy your shirt online. You'll buy directly from the manufacturer. There's no
Mhm.
place for middleman anymore. And that's why
Sure.
models are shifting from B2B
To
to
B2C.
B2C,
Yeah.
to consumer direct.
Wow. And for you, I'm just curious on that. How do you seem so close to trends and your business and etc. How do you how do you keep so close to your customers and your organization to enable innovation? How do you do it? How involved are you in your business?
I'm sitting in my office right now. I spend a lot of time in my office. Your hand needs to be on the pulse. If your hand is not on the pulse, you snooze, you lose. You can't snooze in any supply chain.
Wow.
Yes, I know we're doing a lot of other things that involve personal time, but there comes a time in your life that yes, you need to also do for the society. You need to also share what I'm doing today. 2 hours of my time. I would not normally not do it, but I'm doing it because if I can help 300 people out there to think
Mhm.
differently, to add to the bandwagon, to join me in the crusade of creating jobs, because the truth of the matter is, you know, joblessness leads to uselessness, leads to idealism, leads to crime, leads to problems. Our social agenda, if I was the CEO or
Mhm.
of a country or a continent, I would have only three agendas. Agenda number one, jobs. Agenda number two, jobs. Agenda number three, jobs. If you can
Mhm.
just sort out the job agenda in Africa,
Sure.
our
Sure.
population is maiden age is 19.
Sure.
70% of our population
Is
is
young.
under the age of 30, and those
Yeah.
70% of 70% unemployed. It's a serious social bomb that we're sitting on. And if we don't
Sure.
manage this social bomb and we don't manage this social agenda, we'll have a serious crisis on our hand. And what you see people swimming across the Mediterranean Sea, going to Europe, they're going for greener pastures. And you see how many people dying in that sea every day. But the truth
Mhm.
of the matter is, we can create the jobs here. We have the largest birth rates in the world. We
Wow.
have a lot of people that need to be employed on the continent, and
Sure.
we can only do that if we create jobs. And that's it. If we have a strong social agenda and it's packed around job creation, we'll have a very peaceful country. We'll have
Sure.
peaceful elections. We cannot
Yeah.
be talking about the haves and the have-nots. The problems we
Yeah.
are seeing today in Kenya is the have-nots demanding the haves. And how do
Sure.
you create social peace in that type of structure?
Well, guys, very interesting. Very interesting. If you don't, I wanted to pick a word, but it sort of skipped my mind. If you don't zoom in, you said something, guys. You have to be involved. Yeah, you have to. You have to be. We have a social problem, and all of us have to be involved. So
We
look
have
at
a
those
social
opportunities.
obligation. All of
Yes.
us have a social obligation. If each and every
Yeah.
one can create two jobs, and the two jobs support 5 people or 10 people, you can imagine how you create a snowball effect. And that's the
Mhm.
reason I'm in the textile apparel business, because it's this business that can create the jobs. We're putting up
Sure.
a new factory in Naivasha, 2,000 jobs.
Sure.
That'll be in the next 18 months, in addition to my 1,100. So if you start thinking of job creation, you know, to me, success is not how much money you make or how many zeros you
Mhm.
have in your bank account. Success is driven by how you're managing your ecosystem and what you're contributing to the
Sure.
society at large.
Sure.
Many of you may or may not know, in 2007, post election violence, Nakuru was the worst hit county in the country. I think everybody knows that. That is a fact. We had Kibaki regime had given free school fees. So you were going to school and you would not pay fees, right? Free education, free primary school education was given to by President Kibaki. But in 2008, post-election violence around Nakuru County in Nakuru town, we had a lot of IDPs, a lot of kids that were in the internally displaced, and they were not going to school because they had no uniform and they had torn uniforms. They were embarrassed to go to school. So what if it was free, but I just don't want to go? So what did I do? And it's not in the public domain because I didn't want the project to be hijacked by the politicians. I went to my biggest customer at the time in the UK called Tesco. Tesco is a large retail supermarket, and they used to buy school uniforms from me. So I told Tesco, for every one school uniform I export to you, I will give one free. So the project was you buy one, we give one. And
Mhm.
from 2008 to 2018, every year I was giving 20,000 children free school uniform, completely free. And I did it for 10 years of my life. In 2018, I ran out of schools, sports schools that wanted uniforms. So the project was put wound down, and we've done 200,000 children in this county that I'm living. So basically, I was born here in 1963, and I need to give back to my community. My community is Nakuru. 200,000 children benefited from free school uniforms. They ended up going to school. Maybe somebody will become a doctor, they'll remember, somebody will become whatever, an engineer. But yes, you have to make sure that you contribute back to your society.